When the Intergalactic Exchange Program first admitted humans into the Galactic Academy, most alien species were wary, whispering that these strange, soft-skinned creatures were far too fragile to survive among them, yet endlessly unpredictable in behavior. And it was on the third week of classes that the incident occurred which cemented that reputation forever. A group of alien students from the crystalline planet Zithra, whose bodies were sharp-edged prisms glowing faintly with inner light, had gathered in the Academy's botanical garden to study the flora of Earth, specimens newly imported for research, and among them was Cadet Marcus Hale, a human exchange student with a dry sense of humor and a frustrating tendency to ignore the stares he drew. But that day he'd been absent-mindedly handling a rough plank of wood used for plant supports, and in the middle of the lecture, he suddenly hissed in pain, dropped the board, and looked at his palm where a thin wooden shard had lodged, beneath his skin. To the human, it was nothing unusual, just a splinter, annoying but minor, something that happened countless times back on Earth. Yet to the alien students it looked like a mortal wound, for the shard had pierced a fragile layer of his flesh and was buried inside, and when Marcus, without hesitation, pulled a small utility knife from his belt and calmly pressed its blade into his own palm, the alien shrieked in a chorus of crystalline tones, thinking he had lost his mind, and was attempting to end his life in front of them. Their forms flickered with distress as some of them rushed for medical drones, while others froze in horrified fascination, unable to comprehend why a human would stab himself so casually. Marcus, meanwhile, muttered irritably under his breath, carefully prying open the skin to expose a sliver of wood, his face set in a mask of concentration rather than pain. And when the splinter finally came free, he held it up triumphantly, a tiny, insignificant fragment, then tossed it aside with a sigh of relief, only then noticing the way the Zithran students were backing away from him as though he were some feral beast covered in blood. "What?" he asked, raising an eyebrow, wiping the faint trickle of red on his pants. But none of them answered, their crystal bodies chiming with alarm, and it wasn't until one brave student, SHYR, managed to speak that Marcus understood the scale of the misunderstanding. In their culture, self, inflicted injury was unthinkable, a sacred taboo, for their crystalline form could not regenerate if cracked or pierced, and thus the idea of someone deliberately cutting into themselves was akin to ritual suicide. When the med drones arrived, they scanned Marcus, found nothing but a superficial wound, and promptly left, which only deepened the alien's confusion. Was a human truly so durable that he could stab himself and walk away unharmed? Or was this some kind of terrifying ritual? Earthlings performed casually between classes. Word of the event spread quickly through the academy halls, whispered from species to species, and soon Marcus found himself the subject of a dozen rumors. Some said humans carried invisible parasites and had to cut themselves regularly to remove them. Others insisted they practiced bloodletting to maintain balance. While a particularly dramatic tale claimed humans enjoyed pain and grew stronger with every injury. At first Marcus laughed it off, but when even his professors began glancing warily at his hands, he realized the misunderstanding might spiral out of control. So in the following week's cultural exchange lecture, he stood before the entire student body, showed them the healed scar on his palm, and explained what a splinter was, how it could embed itself under the skin, how humans had evolved to endure such small pains and even heal from them rapidly. The aliens listened, their crystalline forms humming with unease, for they could not imagine a body so soft and vulnerable yet so capable of recovery, and though they nodded in understanding, many still shivered at the memory of the human calmly stabbing himself without hesitation. In time, the story of Marcus and the Splinter became a legendary anecdote within the academy, passed down to new alien students as a cautionary tale. Never underestimate human, for they are creatures who can bleed without fear, stab themselves without hesitation, and laugh afterward as if nothing had happened. And though Marcus tried to protest that it had been nothing more than a sliver of wood, the legend grew larger than life, painting humanity not as fragile newcomers, but as beings of quiet resilience, willing to carve into their own flesh if necessary. And to the aliens who had seen it with their own eyes, the sight of that small act remained etched into memory forever, a moment when they realized humans were not just unpredictable, but utterly alien in their own right,